Hello and welcome our beloved viewers to RTD's News English Edition. Tonight, for the highlights, we got distribution of the first part of the orphan sponsorship for the year 2021. And on the international scene, in Cote d'Ivoire immunizes its population against Ebola. Those were the major stories for tonight. Welcome back, our beloved viewers. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, wished success in achievement to the newly elected President of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, winner of the election to the Supreme Magistracy, which took place last Thursday in that country. Your election is an undeniable reward for your unshakable faith in your ability to lead the destiny of your people, President Guelleh wrote in the congratulatory telegram sent to the newly elected President of Zambia. I hope that the leadership you will initiate at the head of your country will be a source of new dynamics in the legitimate quest of the Zambian people to achieve sustainable and development, the head of state said. The largely victorious score that deposed to your election offers you all the necessary legitimacy to initiate the policies that you judge useful to the well-being of your people and to the development of your country. He also noted in the same document, before reiterating his warm congratulations to the newly elected President of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde, 59, is a leading figure in the Zambian politics. A member of the opposition, he was the main competitor in the Zambian presidential elections of August 12, 2010, against the President of Zambia, Mr. Edgar Lungu, who was running for his own succession. Moving on, the Prime Minister Abdulqadir Kamil Mohammed received the farewell visit of the resident coordinator of the United Nations system, Mrs. Barbara Menzies, in the lounge of honor of the Prime Minister's office. The UN resident coordinator thanked Mr. Abdulqadir Kamil Mohammed for his availability and courtesy throughout his mission in Djibouti. She praised the efforts of the Republic of Djibouti under the leadership of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh. Indeed, she continued, Djibouti being a champion in achieving the sustainable development goals. The meeting with the Prime Minister was also an opportunity to assist its missions under the Djiboutian stakes. The Prime Minister welcomed the excellent relations between Djibouti and the United Nations system and wished her well in her new accreditation. Indeed, Mrs. Barbara Menzies has been appointed as the UN system's resident representative in Burkina Faso. The regional office of the NGO Al-Rahma of the state of Kuwait distributes the first permission of sponsorship of orphans for the year 2021. As part of its programs and charitable activities, the regional office of the NGO Al-Rahma of the state of Kuwait in Djibouti organized this morning a ceremony dedicated to the distribution of the first permission of the sponsorship of orphans for the year 2021 and poor families of the year of 2021, of which about 2,000 orphans and in addition to 100 families have been benefited. Recall that this step is part of the tireless efforts undertaken by the NGO Al-Rahma, which aims to provide the necessary support to orphans and poorer families and people with limited income. In close collaboration with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity under the supervision of the Kuwaiti Embassy of Djibouti. It is also worth noting that the regional office of the organization takes care of about 2,600 orphans, of which 600 orphans receive subsistence, education, and health care, index of the complex Al-Rahma in Balbala and Obokha. The project's director, Mr. Almi Yusuf Tahir, and the project controller, Mr. Khalid, expressed their thanks and appreciation to the donors of the state of Kuwait for providing this financial support to the vulnerable segments of the society. They also praised the fruitful cooperation with the Djibouti authorities, especially with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity. For his part, the Chargé d'Affaires of the Embassy of State of Kuwait in Djibouti, actor Mr. Ahmed As-Sakari, welcomed in a brief speech this humanitarian initiative to alleviate the suffering of orphans and poor families, stressing that his country to keep pace with the efforts to the Djiboutian government to help vulnerable groups. He said that Islam pays great attention to the care of orphans and that this care is not only material but all aspects, so that these orphans are elements that contribute to the development of society. Finally, he stated that Djibouti took this opportunity to express his thanks and gratitude to the officials and regional office of the NGO Al-Rahma for taking care of this important segment of society. For his part, also, the technical advisor to the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mr. Mahmoud Bilal Ali, he stressed the great responsibility that falls to the mothers of orphan children by emphasizing the support of his department with the NGO Al-Rahma to achieve the objectives set first and foremost the care of orphans. He praised the tireless efforts made by the regional office of the NGO Al-Rahma to accompany the pace of the efforts of the Djibouti government, led by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, to promote economic and social development and improve the living conditions of the most vulnerable segments of society. It should be noted that the NGO Al-Rahma is one of the most important non-governmental organizations in Djibouti and one of the main partners of our government in the field of sustainable development. The President of Ports and Free Zones Authority, Mr. Obakar Umar Ahadi, received this morning the new head of the Economic and Political Section of the United States Embassy in Djibouti, Mr. Joe Chamberlain, in the Industrial Free Zone of Damarjog. This meeting is part of the context of the American deployment with the various economic and political institutions of the country, and whose Damarjog port is the centerpiece. During this meeting, the president of the APFZD presented the various assistance and investments opportunity in the field of free zones to attract private American investments. Mr. Chamberlain, for his part, emphasized the growing interest of American companies in the field of energy and infrastructure. After his meeting with the president of the ports and free zones, the new head of economic and political section followed closely the guided tour of the Djiboutian Damarjog Industrial Development, commonly known as the DDID, a real flagship of Djiboutian infrastructure development. And on the international scene, after the confirmation of a first known case of Ebola since 1994, Ivory Coast is preparing the response. The country launched a vaccination campaign against the hieroglyphic fever on Monday. Health workers, relatives, and contracts of the victim were the first to be vaccinated. Côte d'Ivoire has received 5,000 doses from Guinea. It is precisely from this territory that the case identified in the Ivorian economic capital over the weekend came. An 80-year-old Ghanaian woman who arrived in the country on Wednesday after traveling by road from Labe. The presence of this case in Abidjan, which has a population of 4 million, is a cause for concern for the World Health Organization. The death toll from Saturday's earthquake continues to rise. More than 1,400 people are now dead. The concern for the victims is now the arrival of a tropical storm on the Caribbean island. The same scene since yesterday, injured people flocking to hospitals and morgues saturated with corpses. And while the rescue services are still working to try to save the missing people or those trapped under the ruins, aid is being organized for the victims. For example, the construction of makeshift shelters in a soccer stadium in the city of Lekes. This region in the southwest of Haiti is the epicenter of the earthquake that hit the Caribbean island. By this, our beloved viewers, we conclude this edition. Thank you for being with us and make sure to stay safe. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.